So, when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, there are a bunch of things that I think I want to dive into today. We will talk about some of the top dogs. We've got a conversation on Quinn Hughes. We've got some commentary from Elias Pettersson and some commentary on Elias Pettersson, as well as a discussion as to whom it is the Canucks could go out there and target. To start things off, though, let's head over onto the NHL Network Twitter page. So if you haven't seen it by now, the NHL recently posted on their NHL Network Twitter account their list of the top 20 NHL defensemen right now. This, of course, is the middle to late-ish part of the list. We're at the 11, 12, 13 range. That's former Vancouver Canucks draftee Gustav Forsling, by the way, who is ranked number 12. But I wanted to use this list as an opportunity to talk about some Vancouver Canucks guys because, lo and behold, we had ourselves Vancouver Canucks D-man Quinn Hughes, who was ranked as the second best defenseman in the National Hockey League. Of course, he is second behind only Cale Makar, who was ranked number 1 last year and who was ranked number 1 this year. Quinn is ranked number 2 for the second year in a row. The guys coming after him go as follows. You have Werenski, who jumped up to number 3 from being ranked 14th last year. Miro Heiskanen was 5th last year. This year he is 4th. Victor Hedman dipped a little bit. He was 3rd last year. Now he is 5th. So this is a good list, right? Generally speaking, some guys are maybe a little bit too low. I know fans of the players will always seem to push them up a little bit higher, but Quinn Hughes is ranked number 2. I think this goes hand in hand with some other Vancouver Canucks talking points that we can have, but ultimately, when it comes to Quinn being in this spot, I do think that in my heart of hearts, if you were to twist my arm and force me to make a choice, Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, who is more effective, who is more impactful, who is better, I think if you really dug deep into my subconscious, you would find that Quinn is the guy I go with. And the reason for that is because Quinn Hughes had himself a season that was 2nd overall in the league worthy. He was that good. He was ranked in the Norris voting this year. He didn't really have a chance to win it, though. He was 3rd, I'm pretty sure, in that voting, if I'm not mistaken. 3rd or 2nd. Of course, we know Cale Makar ended up winning. But Quinn Hughes is coming off a year where he wasn't at his best. Sure, the games that he did play saw him play some of the most impressive, just phenomenal individual performance-based hockey we have seen in a Vancouver sweater, arguably ever. Quinn Hughes in the opening parts of 24-25, and especially before the Canucks got eliminated from the playoffs, was playing out of his mind level good hockey. But the problem was, he ended up missing 14 games, and for a good chunk of the second half of the year, you could definitely tell that he wasn't at his best. You could tell that even though he was going beyond the heights that he had achieved in prior years, you could tell that this guy was not 100%. Like, it's weird to verbalize it like that, but he was hurt. You could see he was hurt. But still, he was pushing above and beyond. And that is why, in my opinion, if I were to force a decision as to whether or not Quinn or Cale is the better player, I'm believing in my heart of hearts that Quinn Hughes is the best defenseman in the world. I think that he does things that Cale Makar would not be able to do had Cale Makar been on Vancouver. But also, you could talk about it the other way. You could say, well, if Quinn was in Colorado, would he be as successful? Who really knows? But he was ranked number 2 on the NHL's list of top defensemen. This is a pretty interesting conversation point. I didn't really feel like it deserved an entire video. Like, I didn't want to dedicate 8 minutes to talking about just this. So we're going to talk about some other Canucks stuff here in this commentary. Let's dive into some Vancouver Canucks notes on guys that are also on the team. Like what Cam Robinson went out there and said earlier this week, this was from a few days ago, about Elias Pettersson. We've cited the Vancouver Canucks news summary bit on Cam Robinson's Harrison Price appearance a bunch over the past few days, but the Elias Pettersson talk, this is stuff that we haven't dived into just yet, and it's why I wanted to talk about it over here. Let's go over Elias Pettersson, how he's saying the right things this offseason. Robinson says on the show here, Pettersson, we'll see how his offseason went at training camp. We'll see it right away. He's training with the same group this offseason as last offseason. Jake DeBrusk is also mentioned here in Cam Robinson's Harrison Price hit. DeBrusk was sold and signing in Vancouver by being told he would get to play with Pettersson. Cam thinks that DeBrusk will continue to get opportunities there. He likes the connection between Pettersson and Boeser, even if it hasn't always worked. And Cam also thinks that the Canucks will give Evander Kane a try on Pettersson's wing as well. So going back over onto the Canucks and their lines over here, yes, Jake DeBrusk is listed as top-line left wing, alongside of EP40 and Brock Boeser. Boeser and Pettersson has worked wonders in the past. It hasn't worked wonders lately, so I just kind of debate internally in my mind as to whether or not that's the best way to think about the Canucks this upcoming year. We know JT Miller and Boeser worked out very well together, debatably even a lot better than how Pettersson and Boeser worked out. But ever since Andrei Kuzmenko, Petey hasn't really had the best line mates to play alongside of, if you exclude Niels Höglander and his crazy even-strength goal run year that he had. Mikheyev, Lafferty, bunch of other guys over there. But now it's looking like it's going to be Jake DeBrusk and Boeser. You also got Evander Kane, who might have himself a shot or two on Petey's wing. I'd be really interested in seeing how that ends up going. We always knew that Elias Pettersson could get shoved around a little bit, so if there's an Evander Kane-like asset protecting Petey from any physical altercations, that's a very traditional hockey language that's spoken out there by putting these guys here together on the same line. I wonder if that's actually going to be a sustained part of the upcoming year. But Jake DeBrusk and the goal scoring that he brings, of course, he'd be a fine asset over there as well. Debatably, though, second-line center still needs a little bit of improvement, and this is why we're going to go out there and look at another Canucks News Summary tweet based off of what Frank Seravalli said on the BR Open Ice show a few days ago. This is on their YouTube account. It's linked here on Canucks News Summaries Twitter. Big shout out, of course, to Canucks News Summaries for always going out there and giving us the scoop. But there is an extra little tidbit on the Vancouver Canucks, as talked about here on the second slide. Let's go out there and read what Seravalli says about Jack Roslovic. Some thought that has a deal in place, but it's not been announced yet. However, Seravalli is saying that that is not true. Roslovic does not have a contract. However, he does say here that things are getting a little bit close. He's almost signing here. Chatter around the Maple Leafs being a fit, but their cap situation makes it difficult, so maybe not Toronto. The door isn't completely closed on him returning to the Hurricanes, but they don't really have a spot for him. Seravalli also says at the bottom here that he thinks the Vancouver Canucks make a lot of sense for Jack Roslovic. So that's not all too new, to be honest. That's not really all too earth-shatteringly breaking whatever. It's just saying, yeah, Roslovic seems like he could be a fit for the Vancouver Canucks. You can debate the necessity as to whether or not it's even worth it to talk about something like that on air. Oh yeah, Jack Roslovic, he hasn't signed yet, but Vancouver could be a good destination. But really, it's like, yeah, it's been slow the entire offseason. It's August. We're still not getting through this here. Jack Roslovic, at the time of me talking into this microphone, is still unsigned. Can he be a 30 to 40 point player in Vancouver as a center? I think it's possible. Will he be second-line center worthy? Second-line center caliber? Better than Philip Hedl for 82 games? Now that's where you start to get me wondering if that's actually an option, but still, he would be an extra piece. He would increase the depth for Vancouver. I don't think it's a bad thing to bring a guy like Roslovic on. It's just a question as to whether or not he can do what it is Canucks fans want their next available player to be able to do. They're looking for technically a JT Miller replacement, and no one's going to be that. No one's going to be a 100-point caliber JT, so you just got to look for what the next best option would be. Is that Roslovic? Could he come to Vancouver for a reasonable price? Seravalli says he thinks that it makes a lot of sense, but I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about all this stuff? In fact, what are your thoughts about Vancouver Canucks defenseman Quinn Hughes being ranked as the second best defenseman in the NHL? What are your thoughts on Elias Pettersson's potential for next year and his line mates in DeBrusk and maybe Kane? And how do you feel about Jack Roslovic being a Canucks option as well. Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.